All right, today's guest is Troy Casey, known as Certified Health Nut, a leading longevity authority who restores physical, mental, and emotional balance for people who's failed with conventional systems. 30 years ago, he was modeling for Versace all the way in Milan, crazy enough, and started studying nutrition and herbal medicine to look and feel great on camera. And that rabbit hole took him into indigenous tribes all the way in the Amazon, Vipassana meditation, Ashtanga yoga, and advanced training under the legend Paul Chek at the Chek Institute. He's authored Ripped at 50, A Journey to Self-Love. He's appeared on Discovery, MTV, and Fox, and now reaches over 1.9 million people, might as well say 2 million people across his platforms. Troy's mission is very clear, right? It's clean air, clean water, clean soil, and systems that actually last. So, Troy, welcome to the show, brother.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Nate. It's always good to see you and good to be back.
Likewise. Yeah, I feel like I haven't seen you in a minute. And for those of you who are listening and watching on the cam, I've known Troy for probably back since 2018, 2019, when I lived in Los Angeles. Met him on Muscle Beach, to say the least, there in Venice. And man, oh man, that was quite a first encounter we had. But it's so incredible seeing your journey and the growth that you've experienced. I've always had the utmost respect for not just you as a man, but you as a father, to two amazing, incredible kids, and seeing where they've grown in their life. It's incredible, bro. I always give people their flowers at the end of the episode, but I'm giving you your flowers here in the beginning because you've accumulated and have stood for so much greater in this world, and people need to truly follow you for that. Anyways, I'll get into it question wise. So, Troy, let me ask you, at what point did you realize the Western health model wasn't just incomplete, it was actively working against its people? What point did you have that realization?
Well, hmm, I mean, I haven't been to doctors in decades. I haven't utilized them. I grew up on the street as a young kid on my own since I was 14. So I never frequented doctors. So I wasn't in that culture. That wasn't part of my experience as a human, and I fended for myself, so I learned how to fend for myself. And when I started modeling in Italy, I started eating natural food and shopping at farmers markets and got immediate results. And from then I realized that processed foods, food coloring, junk food wasn't in my best interest. And so that was my journey that started 35 years ago. I also read about herbs, something as simple as dandelion, for flushing bile secretion through the liver and acts as a diuretic and overall liver purifier, and got results from that 35 years ago. So I was hooked into the natural um, early on in my life, in my 20s, and I kept experimenting with it and getting results. So as far as I'm getting results, then I'm good. And then over the years, I've seen that the commercial conduits, commerce, medicine, economics, these things are all systems that are designed and not necessarily optimized for the human being, the individual. And I think this is just the growing pains as um, some say there's dark forces that are running everything. And I definitely think that there's some globalists and some people that are above the puppet masters. Well, the puppet masters that are above the puppets, right? That we see on the political pundits and the quote unquote decision makers. But we all know that, you follow the money and that leads completely to somewhere else. And people that set up the money also set up the medicine. They set up the educational system to keep us enslaved in chains behind bars that are invisible, right? And so that we all go along to get along. And that's the society that we live in. And I like the quote from J. Krishnamurti. It's no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society. And currently, statistically, mental health issues are through the roof. Suicide amongst children 14 to 21 is the number two killer. 75% of the American people are obese or overweight. Your average 50% of Americans have two chronic diseases. Uh, and that statistic goes into the children as well. So this is a big alarm. And I've been talking about it for at least 20 years on social media. I came out of the Amazon in 2006 after an ayahuasca journey with the Shipibo Indians, and I saw a mountain of sawdust and barges with 2x4s going up to Home Depot, and understood the way of the world through John Perkins' lens, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. He worked for the World Bank and understood all these economic sanctions, these coups d'etats. And if governments don't want to play a game with the globalists, they'll send in the American military. And we've seen that in Afghanistan, Iraq, uh, Libya, Venezuela, Iran now. They've been trying to come after Venezuela and Iran for a very long time because those are the number 2 and 4 producers of oil. Libya was number 9. I know this because Peru, where I was working in the Amazon, is number 6 and Ecuador is number 5. And so oil exploration was the dominant destructive force in the Amazon. Once they cut the roads, exploring for the oil, seeing how to extract it. Once those roads are cut, then they'll give the Indians or natives down there a chainsaw and $1 a day to fell the big trees. And then that goes into the lumber industry and then the cash crops, the corn and soy for McDonald's cattle, things like that. And so this is kind of a picture of the way of the world, how it's run, because I saw the destruction of the rainforest in front of my eyes, had my heart wide open, and my life changed drinking the ayahuasca and recognizing that I'm a man in this world. And if this is going on, then it's my responsibility to do something different. And my mentors told me that you can't save the world. And so I've brought all that back into the health of the human being, how we take care of ourselves mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And then we can rise up as individuals and increase our vibration, or the light, if you will, the measurable frequency that we have within inside of us. And you can correlate that to the Christian understanding, Christ, Christo, that means light, the energy and vibration of us. So when we all rise up, I call that the second coming of Christ, when we all rise our frequency and vibration. And now we have the information to do that. It's just implementing it while these commercial systems, the poisoned food, the poisoned air, the poisoned water, these data centers coming up and usurping all of the natural resources voraciously. And so it's just a big wake up time. And that was big, that 20-year, 35-year experience of me waking up with food first, then going into the Amazon and going through my own spiritual journey has brought me to my understanding now. And the business conduits, the commercial conduits, the military political conduits are all based in controlling the natural resources. And then ultimately, humans are natural resource. So it's about controlling and enslaving them. And I'm here to break free of all of that.
I love that. As you know, as the general public in society, the, does the public really know who runs this world? Because
No, go ahead, finish that.
yeah, because I was gonna say, I feel like a lot of people, they'll look at Trump, they'll look at whoever is in office, the president, and they think, "Oh, man, he's the one that calls the shots." You speak about Iran and the war and the previous wars that we've had back over the decades, even like, World War II and, earlier back in those years, and I feel as if sometimes maybe the public might be deceived. So what are your thoughts on what the public actually is made to believe?
Well, let me take you through all of that because this is what I'm seeing right now as a cognitive human being. And remember, we're only healthy to the degree we're conscious, and we're only conscious to the degree we're healthy. And as I said before, statistically, we're not doing very well. And so let me paint this picture, because I also thought Trump had some potential to do big change and drain the swamp, et cetera. But what we're seeing is the same globalist neocon movement. Obama was part of it as well. And I thought Obama, hope and change, right? I was like, wow, yeah, black man in the White House, like we're evolving. And, I bit that cookie as well in 2008. But soon I saw that he wasn't going to label GMOs, that he was part of Libya, which was also part of the neocons thing to take over Libya, Venezuela, and Iran, everything that we're doing right now. And so I see that those are just all puppets, plain and simple. And I'm not waiting for a man to come and save me. And so let me back up. So World War I and World War II, big part of World War I was the Federal Reserve that got instituted in 1913. And the globalists at the time, JP Morgan, Rockefellers, Rothschilds, they were all in that think tank at Jekyll Island and created the Federal Reserve, which was ushered in, I do believe, on Christmas Eve. And so we've all used this fake paper money with no gold backing for a long time. And these central banks have worked for total control. So then we had World War I, which was a part of that. Then the Treaty of Versailles, and then who funded Adolf Hitler, right? And then who funded Adolf Hitler during the war? There were American companies that did that, including Standard Oil. Who gave him the oil to fight that? And when the tide changed, he didn't have access to the oil. And then you start to looking at the state of it, and that was Rothschilds as well, the Balfour Agreement. And then you take that through, okay, Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, the trauma that the young men suffered in World War I and World War II in the trench warfare, they took that home. And then there was alcoholism and other violent problems in the household because of that. And that's not good for society or the slave owners that control the labor population. This is coming through, you know, early 1900s. This is all the Industrial Revolution. So the World War I, World War II had a lot of collateral damage. It had to these major cities, and they didn't want that anymore. And then they started studying the psychological warfare and how the mind works. And the first Army operative was Joe McDonegal, I think is his name, and Sean Ryan interviewed him, and you can watch that interview. But they've been using psychological warfare. They've been using remote viewing psychics inside the military for a long time. Then we had MK Ultra, which did experiments on the population with LSD without them knowing it, both in colleges and I do believe there was at least one municipality. They also started practicing with bioweapons and biowarfare in the fog in San Francisco and in the subways in New York. And RFK's got a book on this called Bioweapons. And so, and he's got a book on Fauci as well. And so you have these CIA programs, and then JFK was assassinated, and conspiracy theorists or conspiracy theory was a term coined by the CIA to expose anyone that was negating the official narrative of the JFK assassination. So, and then you add to it, the CIA posted up in Stanford University and was funding all this Silicon Valley stuff that we see now. And so this is all part of that chain. And look at the way the algorithms work with the rage bait and the clickbait right now. Like people's minds are co-opted and they're paying attention to things that don't really matter. Because what matters? Water, food, shelter, and fire are the 4 human needs. Everything else is a want. And it's programmable through fashion, through entertainment, for people to go chase other things, sports, entertainment, instead of what matters most, which is our soul and our relationships with our loved ones. And so psychological warfare, Operation Mockingbird, Operation Paperclip brought all the Nazi scientists over into NASA and the pharmaceutical and the media companies. Operation Paperclip, Operation Mockingbird, which is the Mockingbird media repeating the same thing over and over again. The Rockefellers already set up the industrial age school system, and we see the dumbing down of human beings right now and the poisoning. And then Vietnam War was televised into everyone's living room. So we're under psychological warfare. I postulate that World War III is psychological warfare. And so people are confused at every single level. They don't even know what the genders are. They're arguing whether poison injections without reading ingredients are safe and effective, which RFK showed me the data on all this from Harvard and Yale, and they are neither safe nor efficacious, never been proven, double-blind placebo, etc. And so the gold standard of science. So what was fringe, Nate, in 2019 and conspiracy is now policy or being discussed by policymakers, right? The food pyramid's been turned upside down. We've been talking about that for years. We're talking about seed oils. We're talking about food coloring, things that have never, we're talking about vaccine ingredients, things that have never been addressed. And RFK is trying to hold the gold standard of science to that. But with so much convolution in the government, so much corruption, collusion, people can't understand which way is up and
Yeah.
what's right and what's true.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the public society's just lied to, I feel like, throughout all of this. And let me ask you this, Troy. Man, I have so many questions that come to mind, but would you say most of history is a lie that we're taught in school?
As far as I can see, it's definitely been told by the winners. And if you look at Howard Zinn's book, A People's History of the United States, they talked about when you and I went to school, it was like the pilgrims came over on the Mayflower, right? And in that book by Howard Zinn, it told the people that actually told the stories of the people that were on those ships. And it was painful and they had to eat, moldy food. And when they got here, it was very tough. And so the way the history books are written, and then who wrote the history books? My understanding is Ghislaine Maxwell, who was Epstein's right hand man, her father that worked for Mossad and was a Mossad agent or an intelligence agent, he was the one who owned McGraw-Hill, which is the publishing company for the textbooks that I read. And so as far as I can see, history is told the way they want you to be told. And then all these wars come up out of it, and all the excuse is more war. And I just think that everything that we've been told has been told from a skewed vantage point for people that are pulling the strings for the puppet masters. That's as far as I can see.
Yeah. Yeah, I can get with that. And you look at our school system and just the education with what our kids are going through in the public schools. Uh,
Listen, Nate, people are fucking retarded right now. They're
yeah, I agree.
being ushered through the school system, the food system, the injection system. And if you go out into public, I just went to an F1 event here in Phoenix. People
Yeah.
are shuffling along. Their heads are down. Their posture is poor. Where's the children that used to be like, or young teenagers? Where's the male female attraction? Fertility rates are down. Testosterone is down. People are shuffling, poor posture. Their skin and their tissues, they're obese and they're overweight, and children, not even adults. Like people aren't awake. They're not aware. We're looking at NPCs and robots walking down the street right now.
It's true. Yeah, there's none of that aliveness, that energy that was back in like even just when I graduated high school in 2014 and I was like in the early 2000s going through the school system. And even then, man, I mean, we'd play with Yu-Gi-Oh cards, Pokemon, play sports outside, Beyblades, let them suckers snap and dole at each other in the arena, tech decks. And nowadays it's just like, "Mommy, daddy, I need screen time." It's like, "Nah, you don't need screen time, son or daughter. Like, you need to go outside, get some damn sunlight, put some bare feet in the ground and earth yourself." Nah, that's boring. I guess that's what, these Silicon Valley CEOs, why their kids aren't on the technology because they know how addicting that it is. And they ban that from their own kids, but it's okay to have that in society and for all these other kids to be on. And then you wonder why their whole hormonal freaking imbalances are the way that they are. It's a
And I'm here
shame.
to tell totally. And you gave me my accolades for being a father, and thank you. I'm proud to be a father, and I did my best to keep my children away from the devices. And I have cognizant children. They haven't been injected, they haven't been circumcised. My son was born in my living room in water. We've had a total different experience. I've fed them only organic food and pure water, and it shows. My children are going to run circles around. They're going to be complete savages in this world because most people are just turned off. But we're headed towards, they want 100% compliance in all this nonsense. And you see the way the systems are going. They want to put us in these electric cars that they can just turn off automatically. They want everybody on the Wi-Fi. They want digital currency. And so this is where we're headed. However, I have seen the vision multiple times. Humanity makes it through this great awakening.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, the way that you raised your kids, Troy, it's admirable to look at. Because you didn't send them through public school. What was the school system you sent them through?
I sent them to Waldorf and Montessori. So Rudolf Steiner designed the Waldorf school system to honor the child as a spiritual being. And their imagination centers of the brain, there's a development period up until, I do believe, 11 years old. So my children weren't taught how to read. They learned how to read by osmosis at about 9 or 10 years old. They just picked it up themselves. They didn't focus on mathematics and linguistics, which are left brain activities. They focused on creativity and art and how to draw and plant a garden, etc. And so it was all natural. And they teach you how to think, not what to think. And my children are living examples of that. And there's a big Waldorf school in the Silicon Valley. There's a documentary on YouTube that you can see. Ivy League schools and the tech companies are courting Waldorf children because of their problem solving skills, not their SAT scores. And my children are now in public schools. My son, his last year, he wanted to go to public school. He's a hockey player. And so he sees the difference with the kids and he reads books and the kids chide them and they say, "Oh, you didn't go to ChatGPT to get the book report," and he actually read the book. And so it's like the crabs in the bucket are trying to drag him down to his level. And so they see firsthand, what's going on. My daughter's in a prep school and she's reading the classics and they have Socratic seminars each day to discuss them. So, but they see, the difference, and the test taking is stressing my daughter out as well. And it's designed to do that because elevated cortisol puts confusion in the brain. You get brain fog and you can't think straight because you're so stressed out. And I tell my children the grades aren't important whatsoever.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I wasn't really a student in school. I was more of like a C average student, and school does not, especially public schools, do not correlate to your success in life. I think it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know about that. It's funny you mentioned about, you had a home birth with your children. We did the same thing with my 10-month-year-old son and did it from home, had a midwife. Like my wife was just totally against having ever a newborn in a hospital. It's just not the way to do it. That's what we truly believe. Same with you on that realm. You mentioned circumcision. Uh, Let me be transparent with you, right? Like I'm circumcised, and obviously I didn't have a choice. My parents thought that was probably the right thing to do whenever I was born, as most parents think, because uncleanliness or whatever they say, right? Biblical or whatever. And my wife and I kind of had a debate, and I felt, okay, well, we're going to get him circumcised. She's like, no, we're not. Nate, we're not going to get him circumcised. And Troy, I had a hard time with that because I'm thinking, well, that's all that I was taught and that's all that I was known. Long story short, he's not circumcised.
Mhm,
And the
mhm.
more that I read into it, and I saw you starting to post some things about it too, which was right around that time. And I'm thinking, man, talk about like God, the universe just showing me through Troy's content about the circumcision and what really can happen. Talk to the audience a little bit about maybe they're getting ready to have a child and they're pregnant now. They're a couple months away from having their newborn, and it is a boy. Why is circumcision so mainstream to get done versus, you know, with what you preach, you really shouldn't get your child circumcised? Why do you say that?
Well, my main directive is to men out there, right? They're the natural leaders. And so this is a clarion call to men. Do your research enough to know the two options that you have. understand that the penis has a lot of nerve endings in that area. And if you're literally going to traumatize a child the second they are born or the first few months that they're born and cut their dick off, I mean, you should read a couple books on why that is and make your own cognitive decision, your own based in consciousness of knowledge. And anybody that's religious goes back to God. And did God make mistakes? Have we forsaken God, or has God forsaken us? Like, hey, I made a mistake. Hey, can you chop their dick off over there? And can you inject them with a bunch of formaldehyde and monkey viruses and porcine and bovine viruses? You know, I didn't, I left you guys hanging with an immune system as well, and do you need all these invasive procedures like C-sections and stuff like that? There was a lot of children's death before they realized, hey, maybe we should wash our hands before we help a woman have their child. And think about it, before hospitals, pharmacies, and even stores, what did we use? We used nature. And whatever herbs, Hippocrates simply said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. And we used to hunt and gather. What were we hunting? Grass-fed ruminants, grass-fed, finished ruminants. What were we gathering? Herbs, roots, barks, berries, greens, anything that we could take the sequestered sunlight and metabolize. And certain plant species have a genus structure that has healing mechanisms. Herbalism is one of the oldest sciences around. The Chinese have 5,000-year history of that. The people in the Amazon have over 10,000 years. It's not even written down, right? It's just passed from teacher to student over millennia. I don't think God left us hanging. I don't think there's a good reason to chop off the penis. I had my penis chopped off, and I've had premature ejaculation. Some say it correlates to the way you treat women. You add pornography into it, you add feminism, the birth control pill, abortion, right? Women's rights, let's kill our babies. What kind of psyop is that? What kind of psychological warfare is that? And if you look at the history of feminism and you read Rachel Wilson's book or listen to her podcast with Joe Rogan, I mean, that's 2.5 hours of something to think about. Who was Margaret Sanger? And what is eugenics? What is a eugenicist philosophy? It's ultimately to kill the human species or cull the species, right? And we're living proof of that. Is that right? And so these are all good questions that we get to ask ourselves as men and women, as supposedly grown adults, mature adults. Like, how mature are you? They don't teach you how to balance a checkbook. I had home ec in the 70s. I learned how to sew. I learned how to cook. Right? I went to school on the East Coast. We still had programs in the 70s that actually taught you some form of life skills. I still know how to sew to this day, right? How to tie a knot and sew, right? How many kids can say that, right? And so we've gotten this education that's basically just made us stupid, right? And as it is, you've seen these TikTokers out there, even Jay Leno used to go out on the street and interview people. What are the continents of planet Earth? How many states in the United States? And most people don't even know the basic knowledge that has been programmed into them.
I agree. Yeah. I was curious what your perspective was on that. Let's talk about diet. So, carnivore diet is clearly a huge trend on social media. I do believe in that diet, to a certain extent. But Troy, I know you definitely are somebody that preaches about having a well-balanced diet, making sure you get your greens in you as well. Liquid sunshine, you psycho chickens of cyberspace. You better put that down the damn hatch. I'll tell you that. But I love liquid sunshine. Troy, you got me on that years ago, and that's some incredible magical elixir to say the least. But for those that are on the carnivore diet, first off, I guess, what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet for those that stick with it? Is it as beneficial as what people say it is? Are some people's bodies different. Like your body's probably different than mine. We all have different synergistical bodies with how we're wired within our DNA. And I don't know. I just feel like it's such a fad online, but you either have people that are for it or against it. So, what are your thoughts on the carnivore diet, and then even just implementing greens within your diet? Something else to think of is everything that is in the store that says grass fed, truly grass fed. How can you know the difference? I'll give you kind of something to chew on here.
Yeah. So when it comes to diet dogma, my way or the highway, that doesn't work for very well. Not all things work for all people at all times, I like to say. And, you only have 90 seconds to capture people's attention. Actually, you only have 3 seconds to capture people's attention on social media and 90 seconds to get the point out. So podcasts are always, much better. So diet dogma, this is rigid thinking, and we are highly adaptable human beings. And when we didn't have supermarkets, whatever moves has protein, and whatever grows and can be metabolized, that's where you're going to get your nutrition. What is nutrition? Nux, light. All these are the root of these words, the etymology. So nutrition, nux equals light. So you're looking at sequestered sunlight. The source of all life on planet Earth is the sun. Through photosynthesis, it creates chlorophyll. Chlorophyll has an exact match to your hemoglobin, which is red blood cells. There's an electron transfer of magnesium and iron with the chlorophyll has the magnesium and the blood has the iron. So there's an electron transfer there. And so it's an exact molecular match, the chlorophyll to your hemoglobin. And so this is why grass-fed ruminants are so important. Grass-fed, grass-finished. Why? Because they're not supposed to eat corn and soy. This creates a sick animal. And then you can inject it with um, antibiotics. And so the animal can survive on these CAFO farms. However, you're not eating healthy food, and you are what you eat is an axiom that's not going away anytime ever. And we have 75% of American people that are obese or overweight right now. So what I'm saying has application enough for you to have awareness of, okay, well, what did Paleolithic man eat? And that's where we get the paleo diet. And then you've got the keto diet, which is mainly fat. And we can run on fat, right? I I do best with more fatty meats. I'm a high oxidizer in the metabolic typing. But again, I don't want to get into food paradigms and diet dogma. So we used to hunt and gather, and that is where our genealogy comes from. And it takes 100,000 years to change the human genome 1/10 of 1%. So in a very small amount of time in our industrial age world, we have created very sick humans. People have gone back on TikTok and they've gone to the 30s with old film or pictures of people on the beaches in the 70s. And there was not anywhere near the obesity. Like people being a fat person was, and that's why it's still kind of an insult today, is because it was an anomaly, right? And so, but now the majority are fat and overweight, right? And that's leading to, inflammation. Inflammation causes disease, and disease, kills people and kills dreams. And so you've statistically, all the food right now is scientifically validated. The food pyramid, it's okay to put dyes and seed oils and genetically modified organisms is going to feed the starving populations, et cetera. Well, the American military already did research on this. The organic outperforms commercial farming. I think it's like 8-1 for crop yields. And especially if you look at the Dust Bowl and just wasting farmland away. Like we're literally killing ourselves, but making lots of money at it. And it's all scientifically validated. Right. And so when it comes to diet paradigms, so Hippocrates said, let the food, he's the father of modern day medicine, and doctors have to take the Hippocratic oath, which is do no harm. Yet pharmaceutical drugs do all these side effects, which is very harmful. I have my clients download the medical drugs that they're taking and the side effects on them, and lo and behold, what they're coming to me for is actually printed on the side effect page that you can download from their website. So the Hippocratic Oath, Hippocrates, 3rd century BC philosopher, simply said, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. What were we doing? We were hunting and gathering. Farming came on 10,000 years ago in China, 4,000 years ago in the European in Europe. But what were we hunting and gathering? Roots, barks, berries, greens, nuts, anything that was edible. And we used to soak our nuts and grains and use probiotic starters like sourdough and sour gum to allow these breads to proliferate and actually make them digestible. So that's the whole food supply right there. And so what people get, because they're being so poisoned, they get results when they start eating whole foods. Carnivore and paleo is going to also move you towards more quality. At least it's whole foods, number one, and then vegan, paleo, and carnivore is hopefully those preachers are going to be talking about organics, because organic is a very big subject. So when you start eating whole foods, lo and behold, you get results. 35 years ago, I went vegan and got results. Toilet bowl, woo! Toilet bowl's lit up. I was like eating whole foods, and it's like, and I lost a bunch of inflammation and weight. And so, but a lot of these food paradigms are not sustainable long term. I just spoke to the woman. She gets us Mennonite raw milk, pasture raised eggs, and meats from these Mennonite farmers a couple hours outside of and I pick up my food every week. And I was just talking to her. She's, a middle-aged woman trying to get her hormones back on point. She's got 2 kids. She went carnivore and listened to all the Sean Baker and all these people. Carnivore is the best. And maybe she got some results in the end, but she fucked up her hormones. She messed up her hormones completely. And she's trying and testing different things. And the older you get, to change these things and your lifestyle and your exercise program, this becomes, quite a task. I know this because I wrote my book, Ripped at 50. I got very shredded for that book and the idea of being extremely fit in my 50s. And then sarcopenia is a real thing. Muscle wasting for older people is a real thing. And I got so thin during that time, and that starts to affect your tendons and your ligaments, your connective tissue. And so for the last 3 years, I've been gaining muscle. Now, bodybuilders in their 20s, they'll usually do that in 6 weeks or 8 weeks, or they'll train for that. Or fighters will do that to get into their fighting weight, which is exactly what Ripped at 50 was. It was my fighting weight. I didn't get shredded with steroids, which is a common occurrence with most influencers on the internet. They're all on steroids and peptides, right? And we'll get into that later. But the fact of the matter is, I got shredded, and then I wanted to stack more muscle for me going into my 60s and 70s. I'm 60 now. And so that period of stacking more muscles, that's taking me like 3 years because my digestion's changed. And how can I got really into fasting, intermittent fasting, at my Ripped at 50 program. And now I have to start learning how to eat food and eat breakfast again, which I haven't done much of. However, my metabolism's changing, and I choose to have more muscle going into my 60s and 70s. So again, these 90-second reels on TikTok and Instagram of influencers telling you what they did and not telling you that they're on steroids. They're not telling you they're on drugs and peptides and Adderall and all these other things. They're just saying, look at me, get ripped by my program. And so, but most people, again, are full of shit. And so, and then they say, well, and I'm carnivore, and that's it, And so a carnivore diet can work for someone. Paul Saladino says he's not on steroids. He's not on peptides, and he's 47. And clearly it looks like it's working for him. He's surfing. He's out in the sun. It's working for him. But that doesn't mean it's going to work for you, because for every Paul Saladino, there's 10 vegans out there telling you the same thing. And then, of course, the carnivores as well. But again, these are food paradigms. You have to find out what's commercially available for you in your environment. Then you have to eat it and metabolize it. And it has to show up in the mirror for it to work. It's not just some idea. Again, diet dogma or food paradigms. And so one must test. However, eating whatever plant materials you can get into your body through teas or concoctions or dehydration, and then whatever grass-fed, grass-finished remnants that you can achieve. And the reason grass-fed, grass-finished is, first of all, that's the materials that that animal is meant to eat. And then second of all, that helps with the omega-3 balance. And the more omega-3s that we have, it helps with the inflammation. Omega-6 and 9s are what you see in seed oils. These are pro-inflammatory. And so, and then let me just map out the closed organic cycle. So the sun is the source of all life on the planet Earth. So through photosynthesis, you get chlorophyll. Chlorophyll, then the animals eat the plants, and the herbivores eat the plants, and then the omnivores eat the herbivores and the plants. Everybody dies and goes into the soil, and then the microbes, which are also part of your microflora, your gut microbiome, um, the 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 microbes in the small animals, they decompose your matter. So if you die, the maggots will come and get you and decompose, and then your bones are left. But all that material goes into the soil, and then the plants reuptake the nutrients from the soil and the minerals and goes back in. This is the closed organic life cycle. This is basic biology, and this is not going to change anytime soon, even if they're trying to usher in the transhumanism agenda and the GMOs. I think there's going to be a huge cataclysm, to be honest. It's going to knock out the power. Mother Earth's not having this forever. Glyphosate, the herbicide that they spray on GMO crops, it's a desiccant. It doesn't wash off. It's got a half-life of 30 years. It's ubiquitous. They found it in the Arctic. They found it in fetal tissue and women's breast milk. And glyphosate is affecting us all. This is an excellent report. Glyphosate unsafe on any plate, right? And this is a real deal that's killing off all the good flora in your gut and allowing all the parasites to proliferate. And so this is the bastardized situation that we've gotten, and we need to get back to nature. So my message, even though I can talk for hours, my message is always very simple. Get back to nature in as many facets as humanly possible. And I put this all in my book, and I'm happy to give everyone out there my free 9 pillars guide you can put up on your refrigerator. These are immutable laws, foundation principles, first principles, as they say in physics. You can't have this without that. The body needs to move. It's mostly water. The body should have pure water. The body's made up of the earth. It's a good idea to have pure earth-bound food. You need sleep. You need sleep and you need to dream to be healthy. These are all fundamental principles. Hydration, nutrition, sleep, movement. Man needs purpose. Otherwise, he'll drive himself crazy and he'll go in circles. Man needs purpose. It's a phallic symbol. We can cut through the fabric of reality, no different from the Wright brothers wanting to fly like an eagle or Steve Jobs putting a handheld computer in every man's hand so every man could make a difference. Thanks, Steve. I'm doing a good job over here with your job. So this is where we're at. We must dream the impossible dream. Man must follow their heart's desire and go out and cut through the fabric of reality. I hang out with extreme athletes, Robbie Madison and Rhino Ryan Hughes, motocross champions of the world. They go, I'm going to jump Caesar's Palace. People are like, how can you do that? And they do that. Danny Wade jumps the Great China Wall on his skateboard. Dream the impossible dream. Fly like the Wright brothers. We can solve the problem. Nate, people are looking for miracles, and they're walking around in one. Look inside, begin within. You know, meditation's been around for so long, and then the religions get all confused, and it's like, you know, prayer is talking to God. Meditation is listening to God.
And I freaking love it, Troy. I'm telling you, I feel like you just gave the whole meaning of life just right there in what you said, the past 5-10 minutes. I mean, if you need purpose in life, man, just listen to what Troy said. I mean, he covered all the things that you need to know. And I think that's so important. You know, we live in a world that is toxic. It's very poisonous. There's a lot of snakes out there in this world that are deceiving us. And it's a shame looking at where things are at in this world right now. So be the light to go ahead, Troy.
I just want to say, look, the meaning of life is to live it. Do you want to be a statistic, an NPC, or do you want to be out there and be vital, virile, and victorious?
Straight
right?
up, baby.
I mean, or do you just want to be, living in quiet desperation, being a number, being a statistic, right? You're a man. You've come to this earth for something.
Yeah. You ain't an AI robot, but we got a lot of AI robots of humans walking around, you know? My gosh. Troy, let's pivot real quick to this, okay? So you've gone viral loads of times on social media, but this one particular subject always tends to hit, I've noticed, and that is urine therapy. Okay. So for someone who might have just cringed or they're like, urine therapy? There ain't no way in hell he's talking about, you know, drinking your own pee. What is it? Talk about what is it, quick, and what's the actual case for it? Why are you such an advocate of it? Why is there so much backlash for people that think you're an absolute schmuck when it comes to preaching about urine therapy?
Yeah. So I have three very powerful esoteric practices that go viral. And so one is sexual kung fu, ball slapping. Here's the slapper, right? You can slap your own body to get a healing response, and your body automatically heals itself. So that all seems to go viral. The butthole sunning, getting sun on your nether regions. Well, I think poo poo and pee pee jokes are always funny with children. And I think we're all children inside of us anyways. So
Yeah.
that region seems to get a lot of intrigue and interest. Well, just look at the pornography industry, in the world. And so drinking your own urine, that has, a lot of people are intrigued by it. And I'm not so much the advocate telling everyone that they need to do it. However, I've been practicing it 20 years myself. I heard about it through the Yoga Sutras when I was practicing Ashtanga yoga. I was like, oh, the yogis do that? Because if the wise men in the past have tried these types of things, sexual kung fu comes from ancient classic Chinese medicine, the paida, the slapping, that all comes from the ancient wise people before there was doctors, hospitals, or anything else. So I was like, let me see. I practice herbalism. That's an ancient wise man tradition. Okay. And so I drank my urine the first time in about 2005. And I noticed there was a very interesting energetic behind it. And so I kept on doing it. And 20 years later, I've studied with a few people, and I know some other doctors that are very interested in it. Dr. Edward Group, we did a urine therapy summit a while back, and Dr. P.P. Shivambu taught me about aged urine. So the word around the campfire is that urine has, I think, 5,600 elemental constituents in it: cell salts, antibodies, stem cells, hormones, HGH, testosterone. And aged urine has hundreds of millions of stem cells. And the application is topical, rectally, or intramuscular. And so I have been practicing it and I get results from it, especially my aged urine. If I have any kind of, and I've had my own injuries, so I've got some arthritis, I've got some other challenges. But whenever I rub it on my temples, it lifts my mood. When I rub it on my sore muscles or any kind of arthritis that's poking up, I get instant relief, pain relief from it. And then there's ancient texts. So you've got the Yoga Sutras. Some people use a Bible verse that, we make our own medicine, our own cistern comes from us. And so, and then there is J.W. Armstrong's The Water of Life. And there's one other famous book. And I haven't even read these books. I have just practiced it. And then I've interviewed or been interviewed by other people who have done a lot of research. And when you look at Jonathan Otto and Dr. Edward Group, they're looking at the synthetic biology that's showing up in humans' blood since the COVID vaccines. And also, we believe it's coming out of the chemtrails. Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, who's the number one guy on Lyme's disease and other autoimmune issues, they also believe that, it's these metals and these materials and the bioweapons that's being already unleashed into the environment. And we know with the Tuskegee situation that the government practices on people, right? This happens. Tuskegee, as well as the MK Ultra and putting LSD. putting it into people unbeknownst to them. And so this already happens. And so if you look at the blood now, there's hydrogels and synthetic red blood cells in people's biochemistry. And this is part of the transhumanism agenda, right? And so they want to turn us into robots, load us up to the sky. You got Elon Musk talking about this. Ray Kurzweil has been talking about this for decades. And then you've got Yuval Harari, who just wrote the book Homo Deus or Homo Dues, whatever it is. And so they want to move us in our consciousness and upload it to the cloud, the smart city or the smart human. And so this is all written. This isn't conspiracy. This is out there. It's very easy to find these types of searches for the transhumanism agenda. And so cleanse and detoxifying the body and utilizing materials that we've used for eons, bentonite clay, zeolites, humic and fulvic acids, parasite cleanses, because some of these nanotechnologies, they're self-assembling. And so we've got to get enzymes in the body that break up plastics and microplastics. Like, this is a real agenda. Maria Chrysler is the best synthetic biologist that I know of personally. She's got an electron microscope as well as a dark field microscope, and they're witnessing these hydrogels. You have to go on Rumble to find this: synthetic red blood cells and hydrogels, blue hydrogels inside people's blood. And you add to it the graphene oxide, which was in the mRNA vaccines. So this is all by design, and they're trying to use technology to change human biology. And also, then you add to it biotech and what they're doing with plants, et cetera. They're just trying to do this to the human being. So this is an agenda, and it's all out. This is spiritual warfare, right? And if you like being a human, and if you have any spiritual bone or connection to God, and you don't need a religious text or a cult or a sect to have a direct connection and a direct communion with God. Jesus talked all about the kingdom of God is within, right? There's a direct connection. You don't need to go to the mosque or the temple or religious text or see a rabbi or any of that stuff. Woo! Boom, right there. If you drink enough ayahuasca or ibogaine or 5-MeO-DMT, frog medicine, you've already had that experience. It's keeping that connection. For me, it's back to meditation always. I got so much out of Vipassana meditation, which healed me from alcoholism in 1999. And I'm back on the train now for being off of it for a little while. And I'm getting incredible results. I can't find my anxiety. It's like, where did it go? And I had plenty. I had a lawsuit. I had big challenges in business. Like, people stole from me large sums of money, scammed me. And I couldn't sleep, and I got back to meditation and instantly was healed. So whether it comes from urine therapy, all these esoteric teachings have application, in my humble opinion. That's why the wise men in the texts, they still write about it. And so urine therapy is going to bring you right back to yourself. I study with one of the Dr. Group's research scientists, and she said it's very hard to hate yourself or dislike yourself when you're drinking your own urine. And it goes viral because people are intrigued and they're programmed to be grossed out. But it makes sense that your own medicine would come from you. I wanted to tie it in with all the nanotechnology and the myocarditis. So Jonathan Otto and Dr. Edward Group have had patients or clients that are at their deathbed. Their life is ruined. They got the injection, they're dying, they've got infections, they've got problems, and they start drinking their own urine. They're here today to speak about it. So I did a YouTube interview with Jonathan Otto last year. It's titled something about stem cells and urine therapy. You can find that. It's an hour-long podcast. We just did the Urine Therapy Summit with Jonathan Otto and Dr. Edward Group, Maria Chrysler, and Maria McDonald, I do believe. And David Avocado Wolf was on that as well. And so here's the thing. I'm not promoting it. I'm not saying you should do it. However, if you have a major issue that you cannot solve, then it may warrant you to look into these ancient wise men tradition. Shivambu, urine therapy, herbalism, sexual kung fu, tai chi, qigong, and these ancient techniques. Sexual kung fu is just a sexy way of saying, play with your nuts and your prostate. Men over 60, most of them are going to die of prostate cancer anyways. If you can stick your finger up your butt and massage your prostate or get your missus to do that and move that energy around because that's your pelvic floor and all the lymph and sediment from these chemtrails is settling in your prostate, well, maybe move that around. Maybe slap your balls. Maybe get up into your prostate and give yourself a prostate massage. These things are real things and investigate it. Don't just take my word for it. Getting sunlight. I haven't worn sunscreen in 10 years. I'm not telling you not to wear sunscreen. I haven't worn it, not 10 years. I haven't worn it in 4 decades, right? And I'm 60 and I live in the Valley of Sun and I get sun all the time and I do butthole sunning because people always ask me. I make viral videos and I make those videos occasionally, but I've been doing more butthole sunning because more people are asking me about it. So I got to have the proof in the pudding. Does it work? I'm not a doctor or a lab scientist that has reams of data of bullshit, research bias. I'm a practical guy. I'm an all natural guy. All right, well, does it work? Well, let me practice it a little bit more. And it energizes me. At the bare minimum, it's a good stretch to get your knees over the head.
It is. I've done it a few times just from, you know, watching your videos and talking about it. I think I mean, man, I've done a lot with you, Troy. You've introduced me to a lot over the years. And I tell you, man, I've never even said this to you, but you've opened my mind up to so many different things, especially within the psychedelic realm. And I want to be mindful of your time because I know we're, going over an hour here. So I'll keep this the last topic is with psychedelics. And I feel like now it's starting to become more mainstream. I believe what RFK and Trump, they're starting to, do some more studying in it, and you can fill us in more about that. But you look at psilocybin, ayahuasca, you look at ibogaine, right? You could even bring in Cambo and some of the other ones, Sananga, Hape, right? And first off, I'm grateful for you to introduce me to these things because it's been very pivotal in my life. I have Lyme disease. I have no idea how the hell I got it. I don't remember ever being bitten by a tick. So I truly believe with what it is that you just said, with how they're poisoning us out there. I think that's pretty much how I got it. But you see a lot of these plant medicines and psychedelics, they're all getting more mainstream right now, right? So what do you think the Western world is getting right about them? And what are we getting dangerously wrong that society and the public, they look at it as like, oh my gosh, I could never do any type of psychedelic. I might go, you know, brain dead, or I might never, get back to myself, or I might lose my true identity. Talk a little bit about your journey, summed up in a nutshell, and why they are so doggone powerful and why the research is starting to come out on them.
Well, these psychoactive plants have been around as long as man has been around. Mushrooms, they say the mycelium, they've found them on asteroids. So these things may be cosmic as well. And so, but fungus are primordial elements that have been here before our ecological development. And so, or our biological development. And so these are ancient substances. It's weird how it's strange how the folklore around ayahuasca, they say that, um, how they figured out to get Banisteric copy, which is ayahuasca, and chacruna to mix to get this DMT structure up into your brain and not metabolized by, your gut. And so that's like a miracle that they got these two plants, and there's millions of plants in the Amazon together to make this magical brew. And so, and it's been used for millennia. And so it's just a healing plant. Again, back to Hippocrates, let thy food be thy medicine and thy medicine be thy food. And I think Terence McKenna has a book called Food of the Gods, or maybe it's Graham Hancock. And so where it details these plants. And so plants are very powerful. And having a psychoactive experience, I mean, we're in reality. And it's funny that the government has Scheduled One all these and made them felonies because they were testing LSD on humans, unbeknownst to them with the MK Ultra program. And so, and the stories we heard on the news that people were jumping out of buildings, that's because you freaked the normal dude out, didn't know he was on drugs and had a bad trip and killed himself. Right. And so, but if you look on YouTube and look at the military experiments, the guys all put down their guns, man. And they were like, they were all laughing with their officer. And they're like, the officer's trying to give them direct orders. And they're just like, and so their experiments were like, all right, well, let's vilify this and Schedule 1 it. Obviously, it has healing potential. And
Yeah.
so when you look at something like ibogaine, which cleans the receptor sites and gets you off heroin within 24 hours, and any kind of addiction, right? And so that has a lot of power. So Joe Rogan's been talking about this for years, and he had B. Brian Hubbard, who's been a huge advocate. He's gone down to the center that I went to in Mexico, Beyond. It's $10,500 for a week. It's a medical facility because there's heart implications. So they have to monitor your heart for this stuff for, your average human that's trying to beat an addiction. And so President Trump signed an executive order and I think allocated $50 million in research funds, as well as Rick Perry, the former governor of Texas, because opioid addiction, fentanyl, as well as Oxycontin, which came from the pharmaceutical companies, has destroyed blue collar communities across Texas. And so Rick Perry got involved with this. Also, PTSD. We're ruining our service members, the people that go over to fight and kill for the oil or whatever, style of freedom that's being propagandized into us. And they come home and they're troublesome and they end up being drug addicts and homeless people. And we treat them like garbage. We don't help them. And ibogaine has the ability. There was a research study done in Nature magazine by a doctor, and 360 Navy SEALs, and all of their biomarkers improved by like 50% from doing ibogaine once, and then they did it again, and it healed them on multiple levels. So there's a lot of research already done just on this one plant. And so, but we've got 5-MeO DMT, the frog, the Cambo, which flushes the lymphatic system. It's not even psychedelic. However, it's got such a powerful experience behind it. And I know you've done it as well, Nate, the Cambo. And
Yeah.
so these plant substances, these plant medicines have been around us. What are the dangers? Well, the dangers are treating it like a party drug at Burning Man and on the weekends in Topanga Canyon, right? And just like opening yourself up to the spirit world and not doing it in a ceremonial, sacred way, right? And not utilizing it for intention and purpose, because they are powerful. My first experience with ayahuasca, it opened up my heart incredibly. I got to deal with some deeper emotional stuff and puke that up and shit it out. Very powerful experience. And so on the front end, again, the fringe conspiracy theory, Schedule 1 felonies that were, pre-29 are now becoming policy or being discussed by the policymakers. And so ibogaine is not addictive. You don't want to do it again. My first experience was a walk through hell, literal hell, lynchings and World War II, and cut the arteries open and the blood pressure drops and dead and dying and blood and guts and gore. That was in my nervous system. From my ancestors, I don't know. I didn't fight in any of those wars, but it was in my nervous system and it came out. I've done ibogaine twice and I've had amazing experiences. I love tobacco, but smoking's not that great for you, especially the older you get. I haven't smoked since I did ibogaine the first time. And I wasn't like, oh, let me pray and hope that I get off this, addiction. It wasn't even an addiction. It's not like I oversmoked. I smoked natural tobacco, but I haven't smoked since. And so it has magic. It can cure shopping addictions, porn addictions, definitely opioids. I think it's got like a 90% success rate. So, and again, you talk about the downside of it. Yeah, you go in with intention and then live the spiritual life that you've seen and witnessed the crap that you've been living, and then you do something about it and you change your lifestyle. That's actually the healing component, which is the integration. Change your diet,
Uh,
stop eating garbage, cleanse and detoxify the body, put only good nutrients in there, get sunlight, only consume, good music and good visuals and apologize for the wrongs that you've done and correct your relationships. That's the integration part of it. And that's what needs to be talked about. Not just drinking ayahuasca at Burning Man and dancing the night away and woo, I'm enlightened now. There's work to be done. There's and let me leave with this. There's two forces that guide everything. Yin, yang, masculine, feminine, inhalation, exhalation, catabolic, anabolic. We don't say that inhalation is better than exhalation. So why in the news media are we saying man bad now, right? And there's all this toxic masculinity and bashing men. And then this
Right.
whole feminist movement, but what is that for? Abortion. Again, and who set up the feminist movement? The patriarchy.
Mm,
So back to the programming, but there's two forces that guide us. So these conversations are all nuanced. There's nuance to any conversation.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Troy, let's wrap this up. I got one last thing for you. We're going to play a little fun game. I call it the fast comparison game. So I'm going to give you one word or the versus the other word, and then you're going to answer which one you would pick, right? So first one, yin or yang?
Yin, because I'm extremely yang, and most of my practices are yin to restore my yang energy, right?
I
Give me
love
the
it.
yin, baby. Give me the
Okay.
feminine, nurturing, nourishing. Give me some mama energy, right?
Yin all day, baby. I gotcha. Yeah. Nature, technology,
Nature all day long.
flow
We
or
are technology. The human being is the most technological advanced piece of equipment in the whole entire universe. Papa Joe, the great Maori healer, taught me that.
that's true. We're electrical beings, right? Okay.
And Einstein said we're only using 5% of our brain.
Dang, isn't that crazy? And would you say psychedelics activate more of the brain?
It has the potential to open up those doors to see what's possible. Again, all possibilities in quantum mechanics, quantum physics, that's the cutting edge of science right now. Alternative parallel universes, all possibilities. Back to the Wright brothers, dream the impossible dream.
Flow or force?
And that's a big learning mechanism for me because I'm all yang and
Yeah.
aggressive. And that does you can't force yourself through a lot of situations. Sometimes it's good to forge through. Otherwise, you got to be like a ninja doing qigong, baby. Flow,
Okay.
flow all day. And that's my spiritual learning lesson.
Yeah, yeah, I like that. Silence or output?
Silence again, back to all the yin for me because I have so much output, but I restore my energy, cure my anxiety. The more I meditate, the more I go within.
Amazon or Milan?
Bro, I am a concrete jungle dweller. I love the cities. I love the jungle, but I grew up in the cities and I like being in the concrete jungle and being in community with people and making things happen in the modern world. So I'd have to say Milan.
Okay, wow, yeah, you threw me on that one, I gotcha. Um, Discipline or surrender?
Well, surrender is the ultimate discipline.
Okay, that's good, I like that. Yeah, supplement or sunlight?
Well, my supplements all got sunlight in them. I don't have synthetic supplements. So, but
That's
sunlight
true.
all day long, that's the straight dope. That's going to pump my muscles up more than anything. The sun's going to pump my muscles up more than a pill could if I was living in clouded winter.
Yeah, that's true. I agree. Fast or feast?
Fast
Doing or being?
being.
Psilocybin or ayahuasca?
Mm. those are both big journeys. I would say for daily nutrition, you can microdose both, but I think psilocybin's more readily available, and ayahuasca probably needs to be macro dosed. So I would say psilocybin's much more sustainable at a low dose.
Okay, that's fair. I got a few more here. Ibogaine or DMT?
Mm, I mean, the added question to that is for what? But I think if I had my choice for overall healing, ibogaine.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, microdose or ceremony?
Ceremony. I will say that I'm weaning off of my psychedelic research. I've had enough, right? I got the message, right? You know, when you don't stay on the phone, right? When somebody's off, you don't listen to the ringtone, right? You're like, you hang up the phone. I got the message. So, and I have plenty of, you know, microdose at my disposal anytime I want it. I'd re- my main thing is clarity. So I would say, um, would you say ceremony or microdose?
Yeah,
I would say ceremony. It's there for when I need it.
yeah, I'd say that too. Definitely ceremony. I think that makes more sense. Last two, Troy. Urine therapy or cold plunging?
Urine therapy all
Okay.
day.
All right, last one is ripped at 50 or free at 50?
Free at 50. Being ripped is a bit of a misnomer. I mean, I've got the book. I climbed that mountain, right? I completed that part of my legacy. It's not sustainable, right? It's a little bit of a looks maxing illusion. Uh, and so, but I achieved that. W- Ripped at 50 or what? Would you say?
Ripped at 50 or free at 50?
Yeah, freedom is really where it's at, not being attached to any ideal.
Okay. I like that. Yeah, free at 50. I figured you get a kick out of that little, game show, I guess you can say. I like to implement that on the show. But Troy, where can the viewers, the listeners, where can the psycho chickens of cyberspace, where can they find you on social media? Do you want them to, you know, I know you said about attaching a guide here, so I'll definitely do that. Any kind of resources that they can access from you?
Yeah, certifiedhealthnut.com has the 9 pillars guide. I'll give you access to that as well. My book, Ripped at 50, is available on Amazon. I have hardcovers that I only mail domestically here in the United States if they find me on Instagram. All socials are pretty easy to find me. Certified Health Nut's been branded across the internet. Mr. Health Nut on X and certifiedhealthnut.com. You can find everything from there.
Awesome. Well, hey, Troy, I appreciate you, brother, for being on the show. And like I said, I know I gave you your flowers in the beginning, but I'll give you a tool up here. Again, I appreciate you as a man and everything that you've done so far throughout your life, the mission that you preach every single day in and day out. There's a reason why you've grown to the influence that you have, online through social media, accumulating over 2 million people, with your audience. It's incredible. I've seen you from the darn near the beginning, not the beginning, but darn near the beginning when you weren't where you're at now. And throughout your journey, it's just been inspiring. So you have the utmost respect for me. I always come to you if I ever need any type of advice health wise. And I'm very grateful for our friendship and just our brotherhood that we've established. Like I said, you've introduced me to more than I think what you even realize. And I'm sure there are probably hundreds, if not thousands of people that could say the same. So again, bro, thank you. Here's your flowers. I appreciate you, bro.
Thank you, Nate. And I'm here to remind you I'm simply a reflection of you, my brother.
Mm, mic drop.